housekeeping items before we get started. I have placed the link to the TEIS Community Resource website in the chat. All previously recorded lunch and learns and presentations can be found there on the website. Quick reminder though, the website might look a little bit different as far as the layout for where lunch and learns are located. If you are on the main page that says TEIS Community Resources, about halfway down the page, you'll see Family and Service Provider Resources, and directly under that is where you will find the Lunch and Learn. So all the Lunch and Learns can be located there. Today's Lunch and Learn will be found there here in a couple of days, but it will also be able to be located in the Family Resources tab as well. So just keep in mind this specific Lunch and Learn, any of the family-focused Lunch and Learns will be found in the main page and also in Family Resources. Catherine has requested that questions can go into the chat, and we will follow up on those questions at the end of the presentation. I will place the FormStack link in the chat as well for you to provide feedback and get your confirmation of attendance. I think those are all of my items today. Please be sure to keep your mics muted throughout the presentation. Again, questions can go in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Catherine.
Thank you so much, Emily. I'm really excited to share this information with you all today. So as Emily said, I'm Catherine Williams, and we're going to be talking about building strong foundations for early literacy today. And before we get into it, I would appreciate if you all could use the QR code that is on the screen, or you can use the link. The link should be shared in the chat box in a few minutes to register for today's workshop. And I am going to go ahead and proceed because I want to make sure that I'm being mindful of everyone's time. So if you don't get to do it exactly now, it's okay. You can complete it throughout the training by going into the chat box. So again, I'm Catherine Williams. I'm the Director of West Tennessee Services for TNSTEP. So that's support and training for exceptional parents, for parents and caregivers and professionals throughout the state of Tennessee. And I have a background in special education, as well as early childhood development and speech language pathology. So we are going to be covering a lot of tools and strategies that I have not only used professionally, but I also have used them personally. So I always used to joke with my older daughter about when I was in graduate school, she was my guinea pig. So everything I learned about, every strategy I learned about, I tried it out on her and it actually worked. So these are really tools that I strive to teach others about because they are so helpful for children of all abilities. So I do want to share a little bit about TNSTEP in case you are not familiar with it. So we are a federally funded nonprofit parent training and information center. And TNSTEP has been assisting and supporting families since the 1980s. And not only do we help families, but we also collaborate with schools and other agencies. And the overall goal is so that we can improve those educational results for children throughout Tennessee. And we not only help children within the early childhood range, we do not offer direct services. We focus on helping families, caregivers, and professionals. However, we do assist from birth to age 26. So even that life after high school. So if a child has a diagnosed disability, maybe it's just suspected, maybe it's a developmental delay, also mental health needs and healthcare needs, we help to support all of those parts of a child's journey. And these are just a few of the ways that we help. There's so many more, but we help to navigate special education laws. There's a lot that goes into these laws, a lot of language in there, and sometimes it's difficult to understand. So we really strive to put that in ways that are parent-friendly, and that you can utilize when you are in meetings or as you're navigating your child's journey. We also review documents. So evaluation reports or individualized education programs. We review documents as that, like those as well. And then if there is something that comes into play and we are not able to help for a family with that, we are able to refer out to other agencies. And here is our contact information. Our website is tnstep.info, and there are a lot of archived webinars and trainings and parent handouts on there as well. We often get the question, are families able to just call us and refer themselves, or do they have to go through a professional or a doctor? And parents can contact us themselves at these numbers listed. And we also have Spanish speaking support as well. So really quickly, I would love to know who is in the room with us. So when we do virtual trainings, we're not able to see everyone. And so I'm not exactly sure what your role is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a poll. And Emily, if you can tell me if it is showing on the screen.
I do see it on the screen.
Okay, so you can use the QR code to answer the poll, or you can go to slido.com. You don't have to log in or anything like that. You should see a place where you can type the number in. And so that number is on the screen as well, 2785560. And so I would love to see who all is in the room with us, and the results should be coming up now. So quite a few early intervention providers. That's great. So you can definitely share this information with your families. A few parents and caregivers. Wonderful. So we have quite a variety today. I'm very excited about this. Okay, great. A few educators. And if you don't mind sharing, if you are in the other group, if you could just put in the chat what you do, that would be helpful as well for moving forward for future workshops. And I see someone asking about service coordinator. That could go under, that probably would be other. I didn't even think about putting that one in there, so that's very helpful. Thank you. So you can still continue answering, but I am going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen so we can continue with the rest of the training. So just bear with me for just a moment.
I have lots of service coordinators coming through in the chat as their role.
Awesome. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm going to go ahead and do the second poll as well, since the screen is already up. Is it showing again, Emily?
Yes, I can see it's the previous poll, but okay, there we go. Looks good.
Okay, great. So our next question is, when you think of early literacy, when you hear that word early literacy, what words come to mind? And so just type in a couple of words that might come to your mind when you hear the word early literacy. I know for me, right off the bat, I'm automatically going to think of reading. And then I might also think about communication as my next one. So definitely reading is a big one. Listening to books, language, that's great. Writing, yep. Comprehension, phonics. You all are touching on a lot of things that we are already going to be talking about today. So I'm very excited about this. Gross motor, I like that. Understanding the text, sight words, signing. I was looking for someone to say signing. Environmental print, we'll be talking about that today too. Phonetics, great. I'm wondering if that came from a speech language pathologist. Okay, that's awesome. So I'm very happy that we're starting with this basis already of what you think about when you hear early literacy, because all of these components we will be actually going over today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back to the presentation. Are you able to see it on the screen?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. So these are some of the topics that we'll be exploring today: what early literacy is and why it's important, why it matters, some of those key parts of early literacy, which were on the word cloud that we just did, how that all connects to communication and learning, some everyday ways to support literacy, and then some tools and strategies for diverse learners. So we already answered this question, so we're going to keep going. So IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, there is a quote in there that I thought was very important and fitting to include in today's presentation. So IDEA is a federal law that makes sure that children who have disabilities are able to get the support that they need. And so it really puts families at the heart of the process. So when you read this quote, it sounds like a lot of laws. There's just a lot of wording that goes into it. Sometimes it seems a little unnecessary, but I did want to go through and actually read the quote and then share with you kind of the synopsis of what it means. So IDEA says each system must include a family-directed assessment of resources, priorities, and concerns of the family, and the identification of the supports and services necessary to enhance the family's capacity to meet the developmental needs of their infant or toddler with a disability. So this essentially is just reminding us that services really should be shaped around what matters to you as a parent. That way you actually can support your child's unique needs and abilities as well. So you are the number one supporter of your child. You are with them all the time. You are the expert on them. You understand what they like and don't like. And so we cannot discount just how essential a parent's support is to the process of not only early literacy, but just learning as well. So research definitely shows that everyday interactions that you have with your child are building those foundations for learning and communication. And so you might not think it's that important when you go into the planning process for an individualized education program, or IEP, or individualized family service plan, IFSP. However, all that knowledge that you have on your child can really drive what goals and services and accommodations you and the team can discuss that your child may need for additional support. So I asked you earlier, what is early literacy? And of course, even for me, I'm very guilty of this. The first thing that comes to my mind when I hear early literacy is reading, until I start to really think about all of the components that go into it. So early literacy is not the same as teaching a child to read. It's really talking about those foundational skills that come before formal reading even happens. So I myself, I am a homeschool parent, and I was very, very nervous about teaching my younger child to read, because in my mind, I'm thinking of letter sounds and letter recognition and phonics and putting all the sounds together. However, I didn't realize that I actually had been building early literacy skills all along, just by back and forth communication. So even little back and forth tickling games, or peekaboo, all of that verbal and nonverbal communication is part of building early literacy. Even, of course, we think about reading stories. Yes, that goes into it as well. But as we're going to look at later on, you don't have to read every single word. You don't have to read the title. You don't have to read every single page. There's different ways you can continue to build that literacy without it being specific and formal. And then someone also said environmental print, and that is extremely important. So you might know of a child when they see those McDonald's arches, they can't read the word McDonald's, but they automatically know that that's where I go so I can get a Happy Meal and it makes me happy. Or they may understand what a stop sign is and what the action for stop is. They're not necessarily reading STOP, sounds out stop. However, they're understanding that those symbols are able to create a meaning for a word. And same goes for some foods they might see every day. So the Cheerio box, if you're in the grocery store, they might reach for that box because they know, oh, that's the snack that I like. So environmental print is extremely important, especially within those early years. So reading and writing was another one that was listed in our word cloud. And this starts long before a child even enters into a preschool setting or a daycare setting or a kindergarten setting. Early literacy starts right at birth, even from the connection when a child is born and they're placed on their mom's chest. Immediately that connection is starting, and that already is building early communication and early literacy. Also with communication, we're thinking about when a child is an infant and they're babbling, or maybe they're batting at an object that's above them, or they're reaching for something, or they're tapping on a device and they see that it makes a sound. All of that is still building early literacy as well. And then my personal favorite is curiosity. So infants, they are curious about their world, even if they're just looking around the room or staring at their mom's face. Also for toddlers, we know toddlers love to get in to everything. And sometimes it can be a little overwhelming as a parent because you're like, just go sit down and be still. However, curiosity is so, so, so important. That's how they are able to learn cause and effect. That's how they are able to react to new things in their environment. And they remember those experiences, and it really helps to drive their learning in the future. So just a little more scientific background of why early literacy matters. Of course, it supports brain development from birth. It builds those language and communication skills, and it is really important for all children, no matter what their abilities are. And it's important because it helps your child to be able to grow at their own pace. So whether it's using verbal communication or nonverbal communication, you can include signs or gestures, sounds, you can include singing, as we said earlier, pictures, words, even technology. I know a lot of people, screen time is a whole nother thing. However, screens can help in the long run with helping children if that's something that they are interested in. So you just have to be mindful for how long they are on those screen times, but still it's a part of being able to build those early literacy building blocks. So these are just a few other ways that you may see early literacy with a child. It can look like any one of these things presented on the screen and even more. So of course, we might automatically think of turning pages in a book or pointing or tapping a picture, but it also can be from choosing a toy. So maybe they've been reading about bears or dinosaurs with you, and you can tie in their stuffed animal or their stuffed dinosaur into that interaction with you. And all of that encompasses into early literacy. So these are 5 practices that I really like to use for growing early literacy. So I like to just simplify them because I think a lot of times as parents and as professionals, there's so much information out there, you kind of just don't even know where to start sometimes. So it's best to keep it simple. So singing, one of my favorites, sharing, reading, of course, writing, and then another personal favorite of mine, playing. And we're going to go into how that can look for each one. So when you think about singing, singing slows down language and helps to build playful vocabulary. So when I was an early interventionist overseas, I would sometimes go into a family's home and their number one thing was they wanted their child to talk. They just wanted them to talk. And I had to share with them that you have to build pre-literacy skills and pre-language skills before that even happens. And one of the ways that we were able to grab that child's attention and hold it even just for a couple of seconds was to sing songs, whether it's a familiar song, whether it's a new song, whether it's a made up song. That can really show them like, hey, this is fun. I'm excited. I like this song that my mom is singing, and we're getting to do actions to it as well. So really don't discount just how important singing can be. And it's okay to be a little bit silly. Don't feel out of your element. My mom shared with me that the best audience is a child, even when you cannot sing, because they're just going to love it anyway. They're going to love your energy and they're going to love your movement and dancing. Another area is sharing. So we're not talking about necessarily sharing a toy, but we're talking about sharing language. So connecting with you, connecting with a sibling, connecting with their peers. That can look like daily routines with you, going back and forth, listening to words that you're saying to them, repetition, hearing those things over and over. And then, of course, reading. As you're reading books with them, this supports those early reading skills and helps to grow that overall vocabulary, understanding what pictures are and things like that. And then writing. So we are not talking about formal writing, but we're thinking about connecting spoken words to print or just scribbling with a crayon or just holding a writing tool in their hand and realizing, oh, I can dot with it and it makes colors or marks on the paper. All of that builds those steps for future writing. And then, of course, play. So really starting to get into building that language use, storytelling, imagination. I love to see young children when they're flipping through a book and they're just making up words of their own, or they're just babbling away, and you can tell that they think they're reading something and you can hear the intonation in their voice. So all of that, we want to see that happen because it's part of early literacy. So going back with songs, a lot of songs are they have a lot of repetition. And it's extremely important because children need to hear those sounds over and over and over again. And one thing I do love about songs is that it helps a child to anticipate. So especially if they have a favorite part of the song, you can see the excitement on their face and they're like, oh, I know my part is coming. And that all is part of that back and forth communication as well. And then building their memory and their attention. So we know little ones, attention spans are very short. However, you can always start at very short attention spans and continue to build from there. So if you're singing a song with them and they're only paying attention to you for a couple of seconds, that's okay. That's a start, and we can continue building. So we're going to do a short activity called Listen and Count, and we are going to listen to the song Old MacDonald, and I would like for you to count how many times you hear the word chick and how many times you hear the word moo presented in the song, and type your answer in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and play now. And Emily, if you can just let me know if you all can hear it. You hear it?
Yes, sounds good.
Okay. Okay, so that clip was a little bit less than 2 minutes. And so I'm looking in the chat to see how many times you heard chick and moo. And everyone is getting 8 and 9. So, yep, that's around the right amount of times. So just think about when you are singing a song with the child and you are trying to get them to use more language and understand more language. If you are saying a word or a sound one time versus in a song, you're saying it 8 or 9 times. That's a very big difference. And a lot of children like for you to repeat different verses or the same verse in a song over and over again. So that can even double or triple. And you might think it's overkill. However, they absolutely love it, especially when you add in movements or dances or pictures or even a stuffed animal. So for some tactile input. So I really, really, really would challenge you, if you are not using songs with your child during daily routines, try to do it more often because it can be very helpful. And I see someone in the chat saying like the Baby Shark song. Oh, yes. My daughter absolutely loves Baby Shark, and it's so helpful. You just repeating it over and over. And then even as an adult, you find yourself singing it or it's stuck in your head. And so that repetition, it even works on us as adults. So we're going to take a look at reading is not just one skill. And some of these items I did see that people put in the word cloud earlier. So these are some of those additional skills that should come into play as a child is preparing to read with early literacy, or they are already in the process of reading. So we have phonological awareness, we have print awareness, letter knowledge, vocabulary, and my personal favorite, background knowledge. So we're going to go through each one. And for phonological awareness, this is where you're playing with sounds, you're playing with rhyming words, you're beginning to hear the beginning sounds of words. So, such as saying ball or cat. They're starting to notice that these letters, if we put them together, they're able to mean and they sound one word. Also, print awareness. So just understanding that print has meaning. You don't have to be able to read it. You just know that this print means that this is a snack I like, or this is a restaurant I like, and it has meaning. And then also being aware with handling books. So it's definitely a milestone if a child is holding a book upside down and then they automatically know to turn it right side up. They're becoming more aware of how those letters should be shaped and how they should look. Then that goes into letter knowledge. So understanding that each letter has a name and each letter has a sound, and then that they can look different and some actually look similar as well. Then that goes into vocabulary. So continuing to build that vocabulary, understanding new words as they're learning through play, looking at books, and interacting with others. And then, as I shared earlier, my favorite, background knowledge. So many people don't realize just how important background knowledge is. So as I'm teaching my elementary schooler to read, it's very eye-opening to see just how important back in the day when we were teaching him all the animals and the animal sounds, how that is tying into reading now. So for example, if he is reading a book and he's not sure what CAT says, maybe he has the beginning sound, but he's not sure about the last two sounds. And then he looks at the pictures and he sees a cat. And he kind of puts two and two together because he has that background knowledge that he knows what a cat is, he knows how it looks. And so even if he just guesses, oh, is this the word cat? That's okay because that background knowledge is teaching him what comes next, what he can understand, and how he can understand how stories work. So it's extremely important to really not discount how important background knowledge is and how all that vocabulary a child is learning, or all those pictures they were learning about, or things in the environment that they're able to identify, all that can come into play when they are learning how to read. So you can build literacy through everyday interactions, from singing during hand washing. So it does not have to be any sort of formal song. I make up random songs all the time, and then I don't remember them the next day, but my kids, they absolutely love it. Naming foods at snack time, of course, very obviously pointing to pictures in a book. Doing motions during song, using sounds or gestures to respond. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to look messy sometimes, but I guarantee you, your child is not going to care. They are just enjoying those interactions with you, and they are still being able to build that literacy even through those messy moments. So these are just some additional ways that you can use everyday interactions and include literacy in those moments. So there are books that are waterproof. You can use them in the bathtub. And when I was working in early intervention, I would always have little ones who were what I would call movers and shakers. So they just don't stay still long enough for you to formally do any sort of reading or interactive activity with them. However, their parents really wanted them to be more engaged in the book sharing process. And so I would tell them to try it out during bath time because they're a little more contained. They have the sensory motion from the water in the tub. And so even if it's just a couple of seconds of them being able to engage with the book or with the toy rubber ducky or any other toys that they have, learning that language, that's a great place to do it, as well as in the high chair because they're a little more contained. And so they have their food right in front of them so they can learn some of those names for foods that they might see often, which again goes back into that repetition. And then you also want to make sure that you're keeping books within reach. It doesn't have to be a whole bunch of books, but it's helpful when the books are on their level, or if it's a small baby and they are just starting to scoot around or crawl, having books that they can actually reach for within their reach are very helpful as well. And then also just labeling things throughout the house, making sure that you're telling them what the names of things are, or you're giving the sign for those things, or if they're not at that step yet, just using your gestures to point to things so they can start to imitate you as well. So these are some additional ways to support literacy in everyday reading. Just thinking of exploring together, and then also not being so quick to give the answer or automatically do something for your child. So pausing and waiting and giving them time to respond. It does not have to be a verbal response. It could simply be eye gaze. It could be vocalization. It could be smiling at you, but just waiting just a little bit for that response from them, and then you can respond in your way as well. And being silly within those moments, honestly, the sillier, the better. And then one of my favorites is offering simple choices. So that can be from asking them, do you want to read the cat book or the dog book? Or do you think we should turn the page, or you want to read this page again? This is inviting them to respond to you and respond to your questions, and also helps to bring them even more into that interaction. So then eventually maybe they will start to initiate those interactions as well. So an easy way to think about this is using an acronym, CPR. So essentially, you want to connect, pause, and respond. So we've taken everything from the previous slide and put it into these 3 different areas. And these are just some examples of how that could look. So connecting, pointing to a picture and talking about what's happening. Oh, the dog is running or the bunny is hopping. So there you identified what the animal is, and then you're also expanding that a little bit and telling them an action that's happening. And you're bringing in that pause, so you're waiting for them to respond a little bit, and then you kind of reaffirm what they have responded to you with. So for example, if they say dog, you can expand on that. Oh yeah, that's a big dog. Or if they are responding with an action, they jump off your lap and start hopping like a bunny, you can say, you're hopping just like the bunny in the book. So you can find different ways to respond to them based on where they are in their current development. So we have a short clip here of a toddler and their baby sibling, and they are just spending time together. So you might see a small snippet of a moment like this if you're professional when you go into the family's home, or you might see this with a family member or a friend or in your own family. And so I'm just going to push play, and I would like to see what you all notice just in this short clip about what these siblings are doing and how they're interacting.
I'm not hearing any sound right now.
There's no sound on it.
Okay, good deal.
I was going to say that. So I'm going to play it one more time because it is very quick. But if you pick up on anything, there's very small moments that are happening, and I'll go into what they are. But if you catch any of them, put them. So when you're looking at this clip, it's extremely short and you're just like, oh, they're just, flipping through a book. But if you look, you see that there is connection already. So they are connecting with each other. The older child is turning the pages. Yes, I see someone said that in the chat. He's also connecting because he's giving her kisses. So it's a nice, loving moment. And then at the very end, I don't know if you all caught it, but the baby didn't seem too interested in the book. They were just happy to be there with their sibling. But at the very end, they look towards the book. And so that's a very key point as well, because now they're starting to kind of see that this interaction and being close to my sibling, it's a calm moment. And now they are ready to be kind of engaged in the book as well, even if it's briefly looking at a picture or looking at what their brother is doing. And I do like that someone said that the book is positioned so they can both see. That's really nice. And then someone else said it's like he's pretending to read to her. So that's great as well, because that's saying that he's been shown that, or he's had those experiences. And so now he's sharing them with his younger sibling. So I did want to take a minute to really talk about how every child develops at their own pace. So you might notice some things during early literacy moments, such as maybe a child is not yet showing a lot of interest in books or stories, and that's okay. We can meet them where they are and build from that. Or maybe they're not responding to rhymes or songs or some of the playful language that you're using. Maybe those gestures are not coming in yet, or labeling small things that they might see in the environment. Or if they're having some difficulty staying engaged during reading or play. Again, these are toddlers, so these can apply to all toddlers. However, if it's something that you are noticing consistently, it may be beneficial to reach out to TEIS or your pediatrician just to make sure if there are any other ways that that child can be supported. So also thinking about early literacy, sometimes we forget that children are not just being exposed to one language. So they could even be in a bilingual or a trilingual household, and the rules remain the same. It could be a child who is using sign language or a child who has vision impairment, and so they are learning through touch or sound. Again, all of it works the same because early literacy can grow within any language or any method of communication. So just keep that in mind. It really boils down to what that child is exposed to, how often they are able to interact and hear these different strategies used. All of that is going to help support their overall early literacy. And when we think about the building blocks of development, and you think about developmental milestones, you don't want to say, okay, just because my child is 2 years old, this is exactly what they should be doing. We still want to meet that child where they are and then continue to progress from there. And I know this font is kind of small, so I hope you are able to see it. But essentially, communication, cognitive development, and social emotional development are 3 areas of childhood development that really come into play with early literacy. So as far as communication, when you're an infant and you're cooing or babbling, all the way to when a child is able to use full sentences and have back and forth conversations in any language or sign language, that communication piece starts early. So babies learn through sound, they learn through eye contact, they learn through back and forth play. Toddlers, they might start to name what they see. Preschoolers might ask more questions and then begin to share ideas. So all of that builds upon each other. And then for cognitive development, we think about, how is my child able to solve problems? How are they able to think and understand the world around them? For infants, this could be simply exploring their senses. Toddlers, again, just figuring out how things work. They like to take things apart sometimes and put them back together. Preschoolers, maybe they're going more into planning and more imaginative pretend play. And then you just can support that by playing and talking with them and singing with them. All of those components we talked about previously, that can come into play for cognitive development. And then we have social emotional development. This is the area that helps children to build relationships and talk about managing feelings. So again, for babies, being able to respond to the care and connection from a caregiver. Toddlers, slowly learning how to express those big emotions that they have. Preschoolers starting to show empathy and taking turns. So all of that connection is a foundation for confidence and trust. So that video we just saw with the 2 siblings, this part, social emotional development, comes into play in that video as well, because it's a safe environment, the connection is happening, and so there is a foundation that's being laid for early literacy. So we are going to now watch a short video by the author Neil Griffiths, and he is going to be reading a part of a book called Itchy Bear. And as you are watching, I want you to look at how he keeps not only the children engaged, but the parents engaged as well. How is his voice? What are the children and parents doing? Were there any props used? Take a look at that. And if you notice any of those things, put those answers into the chat. So that is, I wish we could watch the whole thing because it's very, very interactive, and it's really nice to see how children and the parents are able to engage. But I wanted to look at some of the things that you all notice in the chat. So the different tone of voice is great to see. He's engaging the crowd, which is really nice. I love the props with the itchy sound. I honestly wouldn't even thought of that. I would have probably just stuck to actions or something like that. So hearing that sound each time, it really helps to open up all the senses for the parents and the children. I like how he's encouraging the parents to be silly as well and trying to make them feel comfortable also. Someone said giving jobs. Yes, that's really great because sometimes parents they want to be involved, but they're not sure what to do. So if you give them a job and let them know, what you would like them to do. That helps to calm them down a little bit. And then one thing, I'm not sure if anyone noticed. Yes, someone did. You tell the story, you don't have to read it. This is something I like to tell families over and over and over. Sometimes we get really hung up on you have to read the story formally, you have to read every single word, every single page, and then the child checks out and they are not even interested anymore. So you just talk about what's going on in the picture. You use gestures, you use sounds, you bring in a prop like the teddy bear. You use exclamatory words. So he had them repeating the word all. So that's a much more simpler word for a child to attempt to say versus trying to say bear if they are a young child and they're just learning new words for the first time. So I've broken up the age groups into 3 different age groups for adapting book sharing for children who have diverse needs. So the first one is birth to 12 months. And you want to use sound and expression like what he was doing in the video. You want to share the moment. So using sounds, using textures, using pictures, using props. And then adapting to your child. So you want to follow your child's lead. You also don't want to give them a flimsy book that they can easily tear. You want it to be a harder book, a board book, and have some high contrast images. So an example of a book I really love is Hello Baby. And it has simple images in there to help with visual development. And it also is a board book and it's small for little hands. And it's great for tummy time activities as well. The next age group is ages 1 to 2 years. So this is the prime toddler years, and you really just want to let them explore on their own in their own way, and that is okay. So kind of trying to take a step back and let them find those curiosity moments on their own, whether it's turning pages, whether it's holding the book because they want to do it by themselves, whether it's asking for help. Also, some children, they need a little bit more stimulation. So having those touch and feel books, I absolutely love them. They're my favorite. Or sometimes books will have buttons on them and they make sounds, or you can pull the flap down and it creates kind of a peekaboo moment. These are all various ways to make it playful. And a book that I really like is Where's Spot? So sometimes to keep little ones engaged, if you keep going from page to page, you can encourage them to find that one thing or that one animal or that one item that's on every single page. And that helps to keep them involved as well. And the last age group is preschoolers, ages 3 to 5. And so this is when they are starting to expand their language. They're starting to get more understanding about their emotions. Maybe they want to retell a story in their own way because they've heard it again and again through repetition. So now they want to take charge and they want to share that moment with you and pretend to be the one that's reading. So a book that I love for this age group is the Feelings book. And it has really bold and fun pictures. And there's not a lot of text in there. So that is great as well. And it just helps to provide a visual. You also can bring in like matching feelings cards, or if you don't want to bring that in, you can use your face and they can copy your facial expressions and things like that. So another tool that I love to use is the All About Me book. And sometimes as parents, we see our little ones every day and we get so wrapped up in the day-to-day routine, we kind of forget just what interests them. And so if you have a child that is not showing much interest in books, maybe because it's a subject that they don't really care about. Just like adults, if it's a subject that we don't want to read about, we are most likely not going to read it. So there is a link to this, and that will be on one of the documents shared in the chat. And you can just go through and fill out a couple of pages to really sit down and reflect on what your child is interested in. And then you can bring those books or toys into those play and learning experiences. And that is just another page. Yep, almost done. That's just another page about the All About Me book as well. And these are some additional tools that you can use. Again, there will be a document posted in the chat that has all of this information and resources for you to use. And then really quickly, if you could just write in the chat, what is one small thing that you can do this week to support a child's early learning? So whether it's your child or a child that you work with professionally, child you just happen to see in the environment, what's one thing you can do to support them? And then here is our contact information. I'm at the top for West Tennessee. I can be reached by email or phone directly. And then as I shared before, we do have Spanish speaking services available as well, and her information is there. And then if you all would not mind, we would love to know what you thought of today's evaluation, today's training. And so if you could use the QR code to fill that short survey out. You also can use a link as well, and Emily will put that in the chat. And thank you all so much for joining me today. I really hope that you are able to learn some things about early literacy that you can use every day.
Thank you so much, Catherine. This has been so informative. I'm going to put the resource links here in the chat in just a moment, but you will see where I pinned the message with the FormStack link for TEIS, so you can provide feedback and receive your confirmation of attendance, as well as Catherine's survey. You can scan the QR code that you see on the screen, but it is in the chat as well, and I'm going to drop those additional resources in the chat. As a mom of a toddler, this is such a great reminder, regardless of what your role is. It's wonderful information. I love the reminder of how important the silliness can be and not taking yourself too seriously when you are reading. Yeah, it's a great reminder for all of us. We thank you so much, Catherine. This has been great information. We will hopefully see everyone back next month for the May Lunch and Learn. We have RIP joining us, the Regional Intervention Program, and that's going to be May 28th from 11:30 to 12:30. There will be additional information coming out in TriStarts and Staff Update, so be looking for that as well to provide some more information about what they will be sharing with us. So again, we thank you. I'm going to put that resource link here in the chat, and this presentation and PowerPoint will be available on the TEIS Community Resource website here within a couple of days.
I did see someone had a question about the Hello Baby book, so I wanted to pull that back up. The author of that book is Roger Priddy. Priddy is his last name.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine.